Eating Melon+Group Pet+Reading Heart+House Fighting+Palace Fighting+Metaphysics. After being accidentally caught by Bai Wuchang, Shen Yunzhu dressed up as the fifth young lady of the general's mansion. As soon as she opened her eyes, she was almost choked to death by the wet nurse. Fortunately, the beautiful woman could read her heart and successfully killed the wet nurse. In order to compensate Shen Yunzhu, the underworld did not erase her memory and gave her the storyline of the world. Every time Shen Yunzhu encounters a new character, he will think of the original plot. As a result, the Shen family followed Shen Yunzhu onto the path of eating melons. What? My father's concubine has fallen in love with his second uncle. No, Princess Yunrou's husband is actually her own brother. Is Big Brother a silly and sweet guy? Designed by his classmates, he wants to raise a Yangzhou skinny horse before getting married. Ah, my eldest sister is also too miserable. The crown prince doesn't love her at all, and she even begged her father to help the crown prince. This is the rhythm of the whole family. As Shen Yunzhu grew up and unlocked more storylines, he became numb from eating melons. No, how come besides the melons at home, the melons of ministers are also so stimulating? Originally, Lord Li is so manly. He fell in love with Wu Sheng, but Wu Sheng loved his wife. It's exciting. So the third prince is not the emperor's child. Eating and eating, Shen Yunzhu noticed that the wind had changed, and the entire family of cannon fodder had managed to escape the deadlock. That's great, Shen Yunzhu, who is relieved, continues to eat melons. Amazing. The people in the palace are so good at playing. The emperor's trusted eunuch actually loves the noble concubine, and the two have already engaged in a duel to deal with others. Chapter 1. Someone harmed me. You are listening at novel full.audio. Shen Yunzhu opened his eyes and heard a faint sound. She instinctively looked to the side and heard two women next to her discussing to kill her. There is the lady's maid guarding at the door. Are we really going to kill the young lady? I'm a bit scared. The voice of the wet nurse trembled slightly. After Wei Mama heard the wet nurse's words, a hint of cruelty flashed in her eyes. For the sake of her daughter's future, she must also kill the young lady. You've received so much silver, now tell me you're scared. Hurry up and take action, or else you'll look good when Madam wakes up later. Shen Yunzhu now has a clear understanding of his situation. She actually turned into a newborn baby. Shen Yunzhu observed the surroundings and saw that Wei Mama had said a few words to the wet nurse before turning around and returning to the room. Shen Yunzhu lay on the small bed, watching the trembling hand that the wet nurse extended to him. Then there was no more, and the wet nurse collapsed directly, catching the attention of outsiders with a loud bang. Shen Yunzhu lay on the small bed, shaking his little fist slightly, with a hint of pride on his face. Dog thing, even if she is bullied by a dog, it doesn't matter who she is. The noise inside woke up the people outside, and soon Shen Yunzhu was carried to Li Wanru's side. Shen Yunzhu leaned against Li Wanru's sleeping arms, feeling the fragrant scent emanating from her body, and curiously looked at her face. Is this my mother? Her mother in this world is so beautiful. Li Wanru, who was sleeping, suddenly heard a soft voice and couldn't help but frown. Who is it? When have the servants in the mansion been so unruly? Just as Li Wanru was about to wake up, Shen Yunzhu reached out and touched her face. Mother, don't frown. This time, Li Wanru couldn't sleep anymore. She opened her eyes and didn't move, observing the surroundings. Seeing no one continuing to speak, he instinctively looked at Shen Yunzhu in his arms. Girl. Li Wanru's voice was hoarse with a hint of doubt. My mother is calling me. Upon hearing this, Shen Yunzhu became excited and vigorously moved in Li Wanru's arms. Li Wanru suddenly froze, her gaze somewhat bewildered as she looked toward Shen Yunzhu in her arms. It seemed like her little daughter was talking just now. Li Wanru was startled by her own speculation and instinctively reached out to check Shen Yunzhu's body. Shen Yunzhu was a bit shy and waved his small paws to hook Li Wanru's hair. "Mother, I was almost choked to death by a wet nurse just now." Li Wanru confirmed that the speaker was her youngest daughter this time, and she was somewhat shocked as she pressed down on her chest. Then he lowered his eyes to observe Shen Yunzhu, but did not see her speak. "Why does my mother keep looking at me?" Shen Yunzhu looked curiously at Li Wanru, her soft and sticky limbs tightly pressed against her. She likes her mother. Shen Yunzhu was a female sorcerer in her past life. Although she was an orphan, she had all her status. But Bai Wuchang hooked her wrong soul, and as compensation, she was thrown into this world. Just now, Shen Yunzhu used his divine sense to attack the wet nurse, but later he felt his mind was dizzy. At this moment, she is just a baby, and even if she has memories of the original world, she still needs to be retrained. This is a world of ancient romance novels, where the heavenly way has not yet awakened and the world is developing slowly. The name of this romance novel is The Bloodthirst Crown Prince's Favorite Concubine, and it is an ancient and early genre novel. Shen Yunzhu dressed up as the fifth miss of the Shen family with the same name and surname as her. The Shen family was full of loyalty and martyrdom, but ultimately died from the male lead's fear. The girl Hongxiu, who had been standing by and paying attention to their situation, also walked up at this moment. "Madam, you're awake." Li Wanru nodded at the words and raised her hand to pinch Shen Yunzhu's small buttocks. Shen Yunzhu froze for a moment, and his big dripping eyes also showed a hint of hesitation. Li Wanru was originally a bit worried. Seeing her being captured in such an instant, she couldn't help but kiss Shen Yunzhu's face. This is her youngest daughter, whether she is human or supernatural. "My mother kissed me, she's so beautiful and fragrant." Shen Yunzhu quickly figured it out, although his heart was still very shocked. "She is truly the mother I have chosen countless times, she is just beautiful. Wu, I like her, I want to kiss her." Shen Yunzhu looked at Li Wanru, who was looking down at her, and instantly transformed into a little fangirl. Li Wanru is really beautiful. Although she only wears simple clothes, her beautiful face is particularly attractive. Especially her gaze toward Shen Yunzhu was so gentle. Upon hearing the voice again, Li Wanru's confusion turned into emotion. "Originally, I was the mother chosen by my precious daughter, so what else is there for her to be afraid of?" Just as the two women were interacting, Grandma Wei spoke up. "Madam, the wet nurse has fainted. Do you want to find another wet nurse to come over?" "Mother, don't do it. This person is a villain. She just asked the wet nurse to kill me." Upon hearing Shen Yunzhu say again that someone was trying to harm her, Li Wanru's eyes turned a bit cold. "No need, I'll feed the lady myself." Although Li Wanru was still a bit confused, she instinctively raised her hand and patted Shen Yunzhu's body. "Ah, my mother wants to feed me herself, no, I'm shy." Li Wanru fell silent upon hearing the words, but her tense expression softened a bit. "My obedient daughter is actually shy." When Li Wanru thought of this, she kissed Shen Yunzhu's face again. "Girl, will your mother feed you?" After hearing Li Wanru's words, Wei Mama's face showed an anxious expression. "Madam, your health hasn't fully recovered yet. It's not good to feed miss yourself." Upon hearing this, Li Wanru did not respond to Wei Mama. Although she didn't know why Shen Yunzhu said that Wei Mama wanted to harm her, she absolutely couldn't let her precious daughter fall into a dangerous situation. Shen Yunzhu was also somewhat anxious upon hearing this, and his small hand tightly pressed against Li Wanru's cheek. "Wei Mama is good or bad, I will have my mother feed her." Shen Yunzhu even poked his small face into Li Wanru's arms, revealing a small buttocks. Shen Yunzhu was an orphan in his previous life, and this time he was loved by his family, not to mention how happy he was. Li Wanru is now certain that she can hear Shen Yunzhu's inner voice. Thinking of this, Li Wanru's expression on her face became even more gentle and loving. "It's okay, I want to feed myself." Upon hearing this, Grandma Wei's face showed a hint of gloom, and seeing the scene of their mother and daughter so harmonious made her mood even worse. She thought of her children and the money she had collected. The look in Shen Yunzhu's eyes was a bit sinister, even calculating in his heart how to kill her. She didn't expect the wet nurse to be so useless. It seems that she can only take action. Chapter 2. Parents Hear My Hearts. You are listening at Novel Full.Audio. This way Mama is looking at me again. She's trying to harm me. No, I have to be careful. After hearing Shen Yunzhu's voice, Li Wanru furrowed her brows slightly and looked at Wei Mama not far away with some displeasure. Wei Mama was brought over by Li Wanru from her mother's family and has always been her confidant. But now her obedient daughter says that Wei Mama wants to harm her. Li Wanru felt the delicate and soft little body in her arms, while Yu Guang observed Wei Mama and began to calculate in her heart. After feeling Li Wanru's gaze, Wei Mama instinctively lowered her head. Shen Yunzhu, who had been nestled in Li Wanru's arms all along, couldn't help but cry out loudly when she saw the situation. She's feeling guilty, she dare not look at her mother. What should I do? What should I tell her? The wet nurse and Wei Mama are trying to harm me. Shen Yunzhu felt particularly uncomfortable when he thought about the plot of this section. Wei Mama's daughter has already entered the Xianwang mansion. Xianwang wants her to kill me and my mother. No, I cannot leave my mother. Shen Yunzhu's tone became somewhat anxious. Upon hearing Shen Yunzhu's words, Li Wanru was greatly surprised and fell into the sight of Wei Mama. She quickly withdrew her gaze. She pretended to be tired and looked at the red sleeves. I'm a bit tired. You all go down, just leave the red sleeves behind. Soon, all the servants in the room left. Li Wanru remembered Shen Yunzhu's anxious tone just now. Red sleeves, what happened to the wet nurse just now? Red sleeves recounted the incident ere the wet nurse suddenly fainted just now. Li Wanru lowered her eyes and instructed, the wet nurse was carefully selected by Grandma Wei. How could she suddenly faint? Please send someone to investigate carefully and then replace everyone. Also, I've been a bit tired these past few days. Except for you and Thrushcross, don't let anyone else get close to the yard. Shen Yunzhu, who was originally worried, happily waved his small hands upon hearing these words. The beautiful mother is too smart, she just needs to investigate the wet nurse and Wei Mama carefully. They are all people sent by the wise king. After hearing Shen Yunzhu's words, Li Wanru's gaze fell on her small face. It seems that this daughter is a treasure given to her by heaven, specifically to save her. Fortunately, she still trusts Wei Mama so much that she is even in charge of most of the things in the yard. Now it seems that even the people brought by their parents may not be completely loyal to themselves. Thinking of this, Li Wanru's gaze at Shen Yunzhu became even more compassionate. But Shen Yunzhu knew nothing, still happily sticking to Li Wanru there. At first, Li Wanru could hear Shen Yunzhu's innermost thoughts, and her heart was panicked. But seeing Shen Yunzhu's adorable appearance, he gradually relaxed. I don't know why she could hear Shen Yunzhu's voice, and how could Shen Yunzhu know all of this. But these are not important, because Shen Yunzhu is her child. Perhaps she could hear Shen Yunzhu's innermost thoughts, it was God's love for her. After figuring everything out, Li Wanru rubbed her eyebrows and pondered how to clean up the wet nurse and Wei Mama. The room quieted down again. Shen Yunzhu leaned against Li Wanru's arms, continuing to digest things about the Shen family. But because she is still a baby, in order to protect her brain, some things she can only remember clearly when she comes into contact with the person involved. After Shen Kuo returned from his descent, he saw such a warm scene. Madam, have you felt any better today? After Shen Kuo returned, he leaned over to the bed to take a look. Seeing Shen Yunzhu so obediently nestled in Li Wanru's arms, I couldn't help but pat her little buttocks. Who's patting my butt? Ah, it's Dad, he's actually quite handsome. After hearing Shen Yunzhu's voice, Li Wanru couldn't help but smile. Standing on the side, Shen Kuo's whole body froze. He instinctively looked around but found that no one was speaking. And that voice just now was calling him Dad. Thinking of this, Shen Kuo couldn't help but look at Shen Yunzhu. What does handsome mean? Are you praising him for his good looks? This is my general's father. Unfortunately, his fate was not good. Later on, he was framed by his most valued subordinates, causing the entire Shen family to be executed and his sister to be sent to the cold palace. After hearing these words, Shen Kuo's pupils widened a bit. But Shen Yunzhu didn't notice at all, still twisting his body and reaching out to embrace Shen Kuo. Why doesn't Daddy hug me? Don't worry, with me around, he won't let Daddy kill him. Shen Kuo regained his senses and then lifted Shen Yunzhu's small buttocks, holding her in his arms. At this moment, when Li Wanru heard Shen Yunzhu's voice, her face turned white. Surprisingly, someone wanted to harm her husband and even caused the entire Shen family to be executed. But Shen Yunzhu did not reveal in his heart who caused Shen Kuo's harm. Li Wanru was very worried, but she didn't dare to ask Shen Yunzhu just like this. After all, as a small person like Shen Yunzhu, I don't know how he knew so much. If she rashly asks Shen Yunzhu, will it scare her? At this moment, Shen Kuo's mood is also very complicated. After staying in Shen Kuo's arms for a while, Shen Yunzhu struggled to reach out to Li Wanru. Dad is too hard, it's better for his mother. Both parents are so beautiful, and I don't know how my sister, who later became the crown princess, looks. She should be very beautiful, but unfortunately she's blind. After hearing Shen Yunzhu's words, the expressions of Shen Kuo and his wife instantly became solemn. Shen Yunzhu didn't notice anything unusual in the room and reached out to grab Li Wanru's hair. Hey, it's not good who my sister likes. I have to like the crown prince. The crown prince is just a hypocrite, not worthy of my sister, and even killed her. Did the crown prince kill Yunlan? How could this be possible? The crown prince's feelings toward Shen Yunlan are known throughout the entire city of Kyoto. But just now Shen Yunzhu actually said that the crown prince will kill Shen Yunlan. But the emperor has already married them. At the thought of this, Shen Kuo and his wife's faces turned white. Shen Yunzhu doesn't know what her parents think. At this moment, Li Wanru had already carried her back, and after Shen Yunzhu adjusted his comfortable position, he felt a bit drowsy. Shen Kuo and his wife were extremely anxious, but they saw that Shen Yunzhu had no intention of continuing. If possible, Li Wanru would want to shake Shen Yunzhu and let her continue speaking. Hey, I don't want my sister anymore. Let's think about my dad. It's so pitiful. A great general, but she's being kept in the dark by an ant. Aunt Goe is also really ruthless. It's fortunate that my dad likes her. Halfway through Shen Yunzhu's speech, some of them closed their eyes in a daze. After all, her body is still small and she really needs to doze off. As soon as Shen Yunzhu finished speaking, Shen Kuo's expression almost became tense. Shen Kuo is just such a concubine, it was his mother who pointed it out. Now Shen Yunzhu actually says he is pitiful. Chapter 3. Second Uncle's Son. You are listening at Novel Full.Audio. Although he doesn't usually go to Aunt Goe's room, at least Aunt Goe is his concubine. But why does Shen Yunzhu's words sound so strange? It's like he was wearing a green hat. Even after hearing Shen Yunzhu's words, Li Wanru couldn't help but instinctively look at Shen Kuo's head. Shen Kuo didn't know that Li Wanru could also hear Shen Yunzhu's voice. In short, neither of their faces looks very good. But the culprit behind all of this, Shen Yunzhu, slept exceptionally soundly. Shen Kuo quickly found an excuse to leave. He needs to find someone to investigate the situation between his subordinates and Aunt Goe. Li Wanru saw Shen Yunzhu sleeping and called for red sleeves, then arranged for someone to investigate Wei Mama and the wet nurse. Shen Yunzhu woke up only when he heard the sound of crying. As soon as she opened her eyes, she saw the wet nurse and Wei Mama kneeling below. Shen Yunzhu was completely stunned. After listening for a while, she finally figured out what was going on. It turned out that when Red Sleeve was checking the wet nurse, it was discovered that Wei Mama had collected money from the Xianwang mansion, and then it was discovered that Wei Mama's daughter had gone to the Xianwang mansion. Prince Xian and the Crown Prince have always been at odds, while Shen Yunlan is the future Crown Princess. At this moment, even Shen Yunrou couldn't help but doubt. So now it's Wei Mama who has been taken over and is crying and begging. Wow, the pretty girl is also too powerful, so we'll investigate the matter thoroughly. But Wei Mama is a person that my mother is used to, will she not be willing to deal with her? Shen Yunzhu sounded with a worried voice, and Li Wanru, who was handling the matter, lowered her eyes to look at the sound. I saw Shen Yunzhu's pitch-black eyes, looking at his own small appearance. Li Wanru, who originally knew all of this, had a somewhat gloomy mood. But seeing Shen Yunzhu like this, he was instantly struck in his heart. Her daughter is so well behaved and still worried about her, but how could she spare Wei Mama and the wet nurse? If they dare to attack their precious daughters, they must know how to write death. Li Wanru's face changed from gloomy to sunny, and she hugged Shen Yunzhu and kissed him. Madam, I didn't do these things. Someone must have falsely accused me. It was Grandma Wei who begged for mercy. She refused to admit that she was brought over by Li Wanru from her mother's family. After hearing Wei Mama's words, Li Wanru let out a cold snort. Fraudulent accusation of you. The evidence is all here, and you can still deny it. It seems that I was too kind to you before, and even made your family forget their dignity. You dare to harm the young lady, what else dare you do? Since you don't want to say it, then I won't waste my words with you. Wei Mama's heart pounded as she saw the murderous intent in Li Wanru's eyes. Red Sleeves, let someone publicly kill Wei Mama and the wet nurse and throw them to the chaotic grave. Li Wanru had already learned from Shen Yunzhu who was the mastermind behind the scenes. Upon hearing these words, Wei Mama's face turned pale with fear. She wanted to beg for mercy loudly, but was directly silenced by the red-sleeved belt. Li Wanru looked at the red sleeves and continued, sell all of Wei Mama's family, and then tell the grandma about her family's betrayal of the owner. Upon hearing Li Wanru's words, Red Sleeve nodded and immediately had someone take away Wei Mama and the wet nurse. Shen Yunzhu didn't expect Li Wanru to be so straightforward, and the look in her eyes was a bit more admirable. Your mother is really amazing. The yard has become much cleaner now. I just don't know if Prince Yen wants to kill her even if he knows about it. After listening to Shen Yunzhu's worried words, Li Wanru couldn't help but pick her up and kiss her. Mother's good baby, I will protect you and grow up happily. Li Wanru couldn't help but say. After hearing these words, Shen Yunzhu happily danced his small arms. I will also take good care of my mother at this moment. The voices of servants came from outside. Madam, Miss is here. Upon hearing this, Shen Yunzhu instinctively looked up and saw Shen Yunlan walking in. When Shen Yunlan saw her mother and sister, a gentle smile appeared on her face. As soon as Shen Yunzhu saw Shen Yunlan, he couldn't help but wave his small hand. Sister is also too beautiful, she looks like a fairy. Why did she fall in love with the crown prince? Shen Yunlan, who had just walked in, suddenly heard Shen Yunzhu's voice and froze in place. She instinctively looked around and finally shifted her gaze to Shen Yunzhu. Sister, I saw you. Sister is so beautiful. I don't know if the crown prince is blind, but he only wants to use her. Li Wanru, who had been worried about Shen Yunlan, once again heard Shen Yunzhu mention her heart lifted to her throat. Shen Yunlan couldn't help but look at her in surprise when she saw her sister mention the crown prince. The crown prince is the best man in Haoyue kingdom, and she has always liked him. But now my sister says the crown prince is using her. Shen Yunlan was shocked in her heart, but it didn't show on her face. She reached out and hugged Shen Yunlan. Sister is so beautiful, but the crown prince only sees power in his eyes. Even if he later became interested, he still liked someone else. I remember now that sister has been married to the crown prince, how can we prevent her from marrying him? The crown prince is just a snake and scorpion. Although he doesn't like his sister, he deceives her all day for the support of the Shen family and ultimately kills her. If I remember correctly, the crown prince should be trying to please Niu Xiaozhen now. Upon hearing these words, Shen Yunlan's mood sank to the bottom. When Shen Yunlan came, she was quite happy, but now her heart is twisted. Niu Xiaozhen has always been at odds with her, and the two have grown from small fights to big fights. But now the crown prince is actually trying to please Niu Xiaozhen. Her fiancé Ae was trying to please her arch-nemesis and ultimately killed herself. Shen Yunlan's body trembled with anger, but when Li Wanru looked over, she tried her best to stop her reaction. She didn't know how she could hear Shen Yunzhu's voice. But she can't show it. If someone finds out, she will treat her sister as a monster. As for what Shen Yunzhu just said, she will verify it. After a while, Shen Yunlan's emotions finally calmed down. Shen Yunlan lowered her head and teased Shen Yunzhu, her movements extremely gentle. Shen Yunzhu happily leaned against her and gave her a few kisses on the face. Li Wanru naturally heard her youngest daughter's voice, but she was already able to conceal her emotions. Li Wanru saw her two daughters leaning on her like this, and a hint of a smile appeared on her face. But in my heart, I made up my mind to stop my husband from standing in line. At this moment, Shen Kuo walked in with a face full of anger. Li Wanru looked at him with some concern upon seeing the situation. "Husband, what's wrong with you?" After hearing Li Wanru's voice, Shen Kuo's face showed a look of injury. "Aunt Gui, this slut." Shen Kuo was so angry that he couldn't speak. "Ah, did Dad find out? He couldn't have been caught in bed, could he? Does Dad know that the son born to Aunt Gui belongs to Uncle Heir?" Chapter 4. Grandmother Knows. You are listening at Novel Full.Audio. Originally seeing Shen Kuo getting angry, Shen Yunlan was about to leave when she heard the voice of her younger sister and suddenly froze. She instinctively looked up at her father, with a hint of worry in her eyes. What the little girl just said, isn't it true? Li Wanru was also frightened by what Shen Yunzhu said. It turns out that the child born to Aunt Gui is not her husband's. For a moment, the whole room fell silent, and needles could be heard falling inside. Shen Kuo. After hearing his youngest daughter's voice, his fists hardened. Shen Kuo's anger was already high, but he realized that what he knew was just a drop in the bucket. Li Wanru watched Shen Kuo's expression change, couldn't help but look at him with heartache, but at the same time, she affectionately touched Shen Yunzhu's small face. It seems that my husband was so angry about Aunt Gui's matter. If I knew that even the child was not my own, I wouldn't know what kind of anger my husband was in. As soon as she thought of this, Li Wanru looked up at Shen Yunlan. "Lan'er, your father and I have something to talk to. You go back first." Li Wanru's voice was extremely gentle, with a hint of comfort. After hearing these words, Shen Yunzhu breathed a sigh of relief. She was originally worried about finding an excuse to leave. "I'll leave first, parents. I'll come back to see my sister later," Shen Yunlan said and leaned down to kiss Shen Yunzhu's cheek. "Sister kissed me, sister smells so good. Sister is so beautiful, I must find a way to protect her, but now it's still my father's business that matters. I don't know why my father was so clever this time, but he discovered the affair between Aunt Gui and Uncle Heir. Does Dad know that Grandma has never liked him? Aunt Gui was forced into Dad's yard because she couldn't please Grandma." Shen Yunzhu had wild thoughts in his mind, and couldn't help feeling confused. He raised his small hand and yawned. Standing on the side, Shen Kuo was stunned by his youngest daughter's words. Despite the surging waves in his heart, he did not fully express it. It was Li Wan's gentle and understanding speech. When my husband just came over, his face was very ugly. Is Aunt Gui there anything I need? Upon hearing this, Shen Kuo's face turned green and white, just like the person in the play, slightly comical. Shen Kuo looked at Li Wanru's gentle face and was deeply moved in his heart. It seems that only lady is truly sincere towards him. He only took in such a concubine and even resorted to these tricks, which really made him angry. Xian Hohat, that scumbag, used to be mixed up with my second brother all along. Before Shen Kuo finished speaking, he lowered his head somewhat dejectedly. He was actually a man, but his concubine ended up wearing a green hat on him. Li Wanru was somewhat surprised upon hearing this. She just found out the truth from her youngest daughter, but how did her husband detect it? However, no matter what, Shen Kuo found that it was better for her to try her best to tell him. If she mishandles herself and causes her husband to think too much, then isn't she just a person inside and outside? Thinking of this, Li Wanru walked over to Shen Kuo with her child in her arms and raised her hand to his shoulder, her movements being very tolerant. Shen Kuo's originally exhausted mood was instantly comforted. He raised his hand and took Shen Yunzhu, gently patting him. Then he buried his cheeks in Li Wanru's arms, attempting to extract energy from her. After a while, Li Kuo spoke in a muffled voice, "Madam, why aren't you surprised at all?" Li Wanru lowered her eyes and looked at Shen Kuo, her eyes filled with uncontrollable heartache. "Husband, there's no need to get angry. Xian Hohat used to work as a servant in her mother's room. Second uncle and mother have a good relationship, and they often stay together. They were childhood sweethearts, and it's normal for them to have intersections." Li Wanru paused for a moment and said, "I just don't know how my husband discovered something was going on between the two of them." Shen Kuo glanced at Li Wanru and said, "There are my people in Aunt Gui's yard. They said my second brother invited Aunt Gui out yesterday and they stayed outside until evening before returning." Shen Yunzhu was so surprised when she heard her father's words that her eyes widened. "I didn't expect my dad to have someone planted in Aunt Gui's yard, and I don't know if my grandmother has one. My grandmother has always known about the affair between Uncle Air and Aunt Gui." Li Wanru was startled at the words and couldn't believe what she had just heard. Shen Kuo's expression at this moment was also somewhat stunned, with a hint of fragility between his eyebrows and eyes. Although the old lady is his father's distant wife, Shen Kuo has always treated her like a mother. But I didn't expect the old lady to bully people so much. If she put Xian Hohat in her yard just because she didn't like her, Shen Kuo wouldn't be that angry yet. He didn't crawl out of his mother's belly, so it's normal for him to be biased. But now that he found out the truth, Shen Kuo's expression was somewhat wooden. The matter between Aunt Gui and her child did not strike him as hard as this. But the old lady's act of pretending to be deaf and mute made it difficult for Shen Kuo to accept. Li Wanru also thought of this and her mood was extremely complicated for a moment. Over the years, due to Shen Kuo's repeated military achievements, the glory and disgrace of the Shen family have all been attributed to him. So the old lady has always been very kind and extremely kind to their young couple, never causing any trouble. After peeling off this surface, she realized that the Shen family was in such a miserable state. Li Wanru looked at Shen Kuo with some heartache, not expecting her husband to be so bullied. "Husband, if it's just two people going out at the same time, it doesn't mean anything. Aunt Gui was given to you by your mother, and Uncle Air is also your mother's biological son. If you can't catch the traitor in bed, you can only endure this matter." Shen Kuo naturally understood Li Wanru's words, and watching her did not conceal his vulnerability. "I know, I'll figure out a way to catch her in front of my mother when they're in trouble. I just don't understand why she dares to treat me like this when I treat them so well." Upon hearing this, Shen Yunzhu reached out to reach Shen Kuo and made a babbling sound in his mouth. "Dad, don't be sad. You still have us. Mom loves you the most, and I love you too. Such childlike words and phrases echoed in both of their hearts. Shen Kuo was greatly moved by the words and couldn't help but bend down and kiss her little face. Li Wanru watched the interaction between their father and daughter, her eyes so soft that they almost dripped with water. "Husband, you still have us. Don't hurt your body because of this." Shen Kuo nodded at the words and his expression on the face improved a lot. He is not someone who indulges in love between children, otherwise he wouldn't be able to fight on the battlefield and defend his country. "You're right, I still have you. I just don't know when Aunt Gui and my second brother got together. Will the child be mine?" Chapter 5. Big Brother's Wind Criticism Killed. You are listening at Novel Full.Audio. Li Wanru wanted to nod when she heard this, but unfortunately she couldn't. Only a gentle voice could comfort Shen Kuo, asking him to investigate the matter thoroughly before speaking. Before the truth is revealed, it's better not to speculate recklessly, husband, to avoid hurting the child's heart when the time comes. Shen Kuo remembered what his younger daughter had said before and gritted his teeth, saying, "It's better not to be what I thought, otherwise I will definitely not spare her." The two chatted again, and Shen Yunzhu couldn't help but close his eyes. She is still young and drowsy. When she woke up, Shen Yunqing came back. Shen Yunqing is the second oldest, only 1 year younger than Shen Yunlan. He is 15 years old and the eldest son of the family. Shen Yunqing returned from outside, holding the purchased drum in his hand, and walked into the yard with a smile. "Mom, have you woken up yet? I bought her a toy." As soon as Shen Yunqing returned, he shouted loudly. Shen Yunzhu, who had just woken up and was still a bit confused, suddenly came to his senses upon hearing these words. She babbled as she looked towards the door. "I saw a handsome young man walking in, dressed in white and handsome, with a plucked drum in his hand." Shen Yunzhu didn't expect his elder brother to be so handsome, with big round eyes staring at him. Li Wanru couldn't help but laugh when she looked at her like this. When Shen Yunzhu was asleep earlier, Shen Kuo went back to handle his official duties. At this moment, there are only a few women in the room. "Why did you come back so early today?" Upon hearing this, Shen Yunqing smiled and placed the tambourine in his hand in Shen Yunzhu's arms. Shen Yunzhu is still young at the moment and can't hold on to it. "My uncle is busy today, so he asked me to come back earlier." Shen Yunqing spoke while bending down to tease Shen Yunzhu. "This is my poor big brother, he looks so handsome, no wonder he later fell in love with the daughter of the Minister of Rights." Li Wanru, who was pouring tea, paused her hand movements upon hearing this. Now that Shen Yunqing has reached the age of marriage, Li Wanru has been searching for a future daughter.in.law for him. After hearing her youngest daughter's words, Sun Xia's face came to mind in Li Wanru's mind. The Shen family are all generals, and even Shen Yunqing has been wandering in the military camp for a long time. So previously, Li Wanru had always wanted to marry Shen Yunqing, a wife born into a family of generals. I didn't pay attention to Sun Xia. Of course, another reason is that Sun Xia is well-known and has a very beautiful appearance. Li Wanru felt that she might not necessarily be interested in her son who likes to wield swords and guns. After hearing her youngest daughter's voice at this moment, she no longer had this worry. Upon closer examination, Sun Xia is indeed an excellent candidate. She asked the matchmaker to investigate the reputation of the Sun family when she turned around. Li Wanru was thinking about something, so she didn't notice that when Shen Yunzhu was speaking earlier, Shen Yunqing also froze for a moment. He instinctively looked around and could confirm that no one was speaking. Shen Yunqing couldn't help but be shocked in his heart. Unfortunately, my elder brother was later framed and tragically killed. He became a big injustice and raised a thin horse in Yangzhou, offending the Minister of Rights. In the end, his reputation was ruined. Shen Yunqing heard the sound again and turned his gaze to Shen Yunzhu. He felt like a bolt from the blue in his heart. He could confirm that no one was speaking just now, and the only one in the room who could call her big brother was Shen Yunzhu. So what kind of great opportunity did she get? I can actually hear my little sister's voice. Girl, do you like the tambourine that your brother brought you? Shen Yunqing steadied his emotions in his heart, holding Shen Yunzhu's small hand and shaking his tambourine. Shen Yunzhu's gaze fell on the drum, and he let out giggles in his mouth, looking very cheerful. Big brother is really kind. I need to find a way to help him, and I must not blindly raise a son for others. So Yangzhou Slim Horse never had anything to do with Big Brother, and Big Brother just buried his future like this. Upon hearing this, Li Wanru was greatly surprised and her gaze towards her eldest son became complicated. She turned around and replaced the people around Shen Yunqing. She wanted to see who was trying to harm her son. Shen Yunqing's scalp tingled as he listened, and he felt a sense of foreboding in his heart. A while ago, his friend did invite him several times to play, saying that there was a beautiful girl introduced to him. The Shen family has strict family rules because he doesn't have those messy women around him because he wants to practice martial arts. Of course, another reason is that he is currently unmarried and cannot act recklessly just to get married. So after hearing his friend's words, Shen Yunqing instinctively refused. Just after that, my friends would occasionally mention it. Shen Yunqing didn't think much, but now he suddenly heard the little girl's voice. Shen Yunqing suddenly understood and couldn't help but feel a tingling scalp. After multiple persuasions from friends, Shen Yunqing was indeed somewhat shaken. Although he is determined not to act recklessly, he also wants to go and see the world. But if it's like what little sister said, then Yangzhou Lean Horse is specifically prepared for him. Thinking of this, Shen Yunqing's heart constantly surged with killing intent. He is the eldest son of the Shen family and has seen blood by Shen Kuo's side. He treats people as good friends. Did that person actually calculate himself like this behind his back? Also, what about raising a son for someone else? Li Wanru's mood was also very heavy at the moment, but she still forced a smile. At this moment, both of them unconsciously turned their gaze to Shen Yunzhu, hoping that she could say more. But unfortunately, Shen Yunzhu didn't speak and just happily kicked and played with the tambourine. Shen Yunqing stayed for a while longer before finally finding an excuse to leave. Before Shen Yunqing left, Li Wanru instructed him to study hard and not to run around. Don't worry, mother. With my little uncle in charge, you can rest assured. Unexpectedly, Shen Yunzhu's eyes lit up instantly when he heard his little uncle. In my originally dazed mind, there was also something about my little uncle Li Chengyan. Uncle is about to lose his own safety, where is there time to take care of big brother? Shen Yunzhu felt a little anxious at the thought of this, and instead of playing obediently, he burst into tears. What should I do? My uncle is about to be killed by bad people. What should I tell my mother at this moment? Shen Yunzhu realized that crossing over to become a baby was particularly bad. If she could speak now, she could find a way to warn Li Wanru. But now she seems to have no other choice but to cry. Li Wanru didn't expect Shen Yunzhu to mention Li Chengyan, and her face changed greatly upon hearing this. The relationship between Li Chengyan and Li Wanru is excellent. Li Chengyan is young and has been following behind Li Wanru since childhood, so their relationship is naturally very close. Shen Yunqing, who had originally wanted to leave, also paused at this moment. Li Wanru hugged Shen Yunzhu and comforted, "Why is the girl crying? Is it because the mother is holding her uncomfortable?" Chapter 6. Biyun Pavilion Storm. You are listening at Novel Full.Audio. The reason why Li Wanru said this is to coax Shen Yunzhu to say more. At this moment, her heart was burning with anxiety. Upon hearing this, Shen Yunzhu stopped crying and looked up at Li Wanru, holding onto the clothes on her chest with his small hand. "Wu, I'm not feeling unwell. I'm worried about my uncle. If he goes late, he will bump into a private meeting between Prince Rong and Ziyuna Yuyener, and be immediately silenced after being discovered." Li Wanru was taken aback at the words and looked up at Shen Yunqing. You came back so early today. What did your little uncle do? I haven't seen him for some time. If you call him over, just say I miss him. Shen Yunzhu nodded hastily upon hearing these words. Even if Yunrou doesn't say anything, he still wants to go find Li Chengyan. Great, hurry up. My uncle is drinking tea at the Biyun Pavilion right now. Upon hearing these words, Shen Yunzhu quickly turned around and left. He didn't know where to find Li Chengyan before, but now he naturally goes straight to his destination. Watching Shen Yunzhu leave, Li Wanru's hanging heart still couldn't relax. She thought and thought, feeling that it was not enough for Shen Yunzhu to go find Li Chengyan alone. Red Sleeves, go tell Jia Guard to go too and make sure to bring the young master. Red Sleeves were surprised at the words, but upon hearing Li Wanru's instructions, they immediately turned around and left. Jia Huwei was a person brought by Li Wanru from her mother's family. Although he was just a guard, he was also Li Wanru's confidant. After Red Tea also left, Li Wanru breathed a slight sigh of relief. At this moment, Shen Yunzhu also quieted down and looked at Li Wanru with some curiosity. How could my mother suddenly remember to look for my uncle? It's still early, so my uncle should be fine. Upon hearing this, Li Wanru's eyes flickered with a hint of unnatural feeling. She listened to her youngest daughter's voice and watched her expression become even more loving. Li Wanru truly felt at this moment that Shen Yunzhu was sent by heaven to save her. Biyun Pavilion. In the quiet room, Li Chengyan is drinking tea. As Shen Yunzhu ran in with sweat all over his head, a surprised expression appeared in his eyes. Uncle. When Shen Yunzhu saw Li Chengyan, he almost burst into tears of joy. He rushed slowly all the way, afraid of coming late, only seeing the body of Li Chengyan. How did you come here? Didn't I ask you to go back to the mansion? My mother asked me to come to you and said I have an urgent matter to discuss with you. Shen Yunzhu didn't have time to talk to him in detail, so he pulled Li Chengyan downstairs. Li Chengyan looked at Shen Yunzhu with a surprised expression on his face and said, "Isn't your mother still in confinement?" It was only after leaving the Biyun Pavilion that Shen Yunzhu released his grip on Li Chengyan. Li Chengyan frowned slightly as he looked at his clothes being crumpled by Shen Yunzhu. His nephew has always been steady, when has he been so reckless? Li Chengyan didn't speak until the two of them got on the carriage back to the general's mansion. What's wrong with your mother? You called me out in such a hurry. Upon hearing this, Shen Yunzhu's face showed a hint of embarrassment. My mother said she missed you and asked me to take you back. At this moment, the driver has been replaced by Jia Guardian. He looked at the carriage parked at the entrance of the Biyun Pavilion, and a hint of surprise flashed in his eyes. When did their young master actually know how to tell fortune? Surprisingly, he knew that Prince Rong would come to Biyun Pavilion. Upon hearing this, Li Chengyan's lips twitched and he looked at Shen Yunzhu speechlessly. You called me out in such a hurry, that's why. I didn't tell you, I came to Biyun Pavilion today for something. A strange color flashed in Shen Yunzhu's eyes upon hearing this. What's up, uncle? Can we do it another day? Li Chengyan was somewhat surprised when he heard Shen Yunzhu's words. He doesn't remember when Shen Yunzhu was so indecisive. Although he felt strange, he still explained to him in a warm voice. Do you still remember Yan Jian whom I mentioned to you a while ago? Shen Yunzhu nodded. I remember you admired his talent before, but he didn't always look down on generals. Li Chengyan smiled at the words and said, this time he invited me to drink tea at the Biyun Pavilion, saying that he admired my marksmanship very much. Shen Yunzhu clenched his fist in anger at the words, if he had not known earlier that it was a trap. Now hearing Li Chengyan's words, Shen Yunzhu can confirm that someone designed it. It's just that Li Chengyan admires Yan Jian a lot, and he doesn't like to speak ill of him directly. But my mother is in a hurry to see you. She said she wants to have a good chat with you and even said she misses you. How about I have someone deliver a letter to Yan Jian later, and you can arrange another day. Li Qingyan thought he had said so much that Shen Yunqing would let him go back. After hearing Shen Yunqing's words at this moment, he couldn't hide his surprised expression and looked up and down at Shen Yunqing. But Shen Yunqing remained motionless like a mountain, sitting across from him and letting him scrutinize. Even before he wanted to ask, he closed his eyes directly in front of him. Okay, now Li Qingyan doesn't know what to say. After all, although he admires Yan Jian very much, he still doesn't have enough to look at Li Wanru, his biological sister. Okay, when you arrive at the mansion later, you can send someone to the Biyun Pavilion to talk to Yan Jian and tell him that I will meet him another day. However, I'm afraid that after this time, Yan Jian will directly put me on the list that I can't make friends with. Upon hearing this, Shen Yunqing opened his eyes and sneered, "Uncle, generals and civil servants have never been on the same side. Even if Yan Jian has some literary talent, he is definitely not on the same side as us. Why bother making friends with those people?" Li Qingyan was speechless upon hearing this. Although he understands this truth, it does not mean that he really wants to sever ties with civil servants and the like. After all, the mouths of literati are the ghosts that harm people. When necessary, these generals still need to recruit some civil servants. Quickly arrived at the Shen family, Shen Yunqing took Li Qingyan directly to Li Wanru's yard. Haoyue Kingdom does not have such strict male and female defense, let alone Li Qingyan, who is Li Wanru's younger brother. At this moment, Li Wanru already knew that Shen Yunqing and Li Qingyan had returned safely, and her hanging heart had also calmed down. I don't know what my uncle looks like, but since my mother is so beautiful, my uncle should also be very good. Looking, fortunately, my uncle is fine. Otherwise, with my mother's current health, if I knew that my uncle had an accident, I would probably vomit blood in anger. After all, in the original days, the mother was so angry that she vomited blood due to her younger uncle's accident, leaving behind a root cause of illness during confinement. Li Qingyan came in and saw Li Wanru wearing a forehead protector on her head. He originally had some doubts in his heart, but after seeing his sister's weak appearance, he became more concerned about her recent life and daily life. After a brief chat, Li Qingyan finally asked about the main matter. "Sister, are you in such a hurry to call me for something?" Li Wanru had nothing to ask him for originally, and now she just said she had a dream and missed him a bit. Chapter 7. Hong Gongzi dies. You are listening at novel full.audio. Fortunately, Li Wanru's acting skills are good, so Li Qingyan didn't see any problems. Shen Yunzhu lay in Li Wanru's arms, his eyes fixed straight on his little uncle. She said that her mother is beautiful, and her younger uncle should also be very good. Looking. Now, as expected, my uncle's appearance does not match Shen Yunqing's handsome appearance. Li Qingyan has a handsome appearance and a slightly delicate face. There is a hint of sharpness between his eyebrows and eyes, but he appears more shrewd than Shen Yunqing. However, it is also true that Shen Yunqing is not as young as Li Qingyan in terms of experience. "Sister, the Ming and Qing dynasties were in a hurry and called me over. I thought something was wrong with you." When Li Qingyan said this, he looked at Shen Yunqing with a slight disapproval. "Such a big person, we can't do things like this in the future." Upon hearing this, Shen Yunqing's face showed a hint of embarrassment. "It's not a problem with the Ming and Qing dynasties, I asked him to call you here. Yesterday, I didn't know what was going on and had a nightmare all night. I was very anxious when I thought of you today, so I asked him to call you here. If you want to blame me, blame me." Li Qingyan was stunned at the words. How dare he blame his sister? Even Shen Yunqing didn't blame him, he just felt a bit speechless being urged by him. Is this just a sibling bond? Thanks to my mother calling my uncle over, if he were still in the Biyun Pavilion, something might have happened by now. Upon hearing this, Li Wanru's expression on her face became even more friendly. Li Qingyan is her younger brother, and even if he gets a little impatient when he calls him over, he won't really upset him. "Sister, where are you talking about? I'm not worried about you." Li Wanru smiled a little when she heard this and said, if you're really worried about me, stay here with me today. I'll have my servants take you back tonight. Li Qingyan heard his sister say so, how dare he refute again. Shen Yunzhu also breathed a slight sigh of relief at this moment. The tense heartstring loosened, and he couldn't help but turn his gaze to his little sister. Mom, let me hold my sister and play for a while. You can rest for a while. Li Wanru naturally wouldn't hinder Shen Yunzhu from getting close to her youngest daughter, so she hugged Shen Yunzhu over to him. Even Li Qingyan shifted his attention to Shen Yunzhu, only to realize that his little niece was staring at him with her eyes dripping, appearing particularly silly and cute. Although Li Qingyan clarified, he still didn't have a daughter, and seeing Shen Yunzhu so naturally happy couldn't help. Immediately, he took down the sheepskin jade pendant he was wearing on his waist and handed it to Shen Yunzhu. I came in a hurry and didn't bring any gifts for the girl. Let's play with this for her. As Li Qingyan spoke, he stuffed the sheep-fat jade pendant into Shen Yunzhu's hand. Shen Yunzhu immediately hugged her and made a babbling sound in her mouth. Wow, my uncle is also too generous. No wonder he angered Prince Xian and wanted to kill him. However, even if my uncle avoids the trap this time, he will still be killed by my aunt in the future. After all, her heart is now on her first love. Upon hearing this, Li Wanru was startled and the faces of her younger siblings came to mind. My younger brother is good at everything, except for his special admiration for literati, so marrying a wife is also part of the literati family. Although her younger siblings usually speak less, they have always been very contemptuous of their family's status as generals. In the past, she could see clearly, but she didn't think too much. After hearing these words, Shen Yunzhu couldn't help but look sympathetically at Li Qingyan. Turns out his little uncle is even more miserable than him. Li Wanru didn't know that her eldest son could also hear her youngest daughter's voice, and she even compared herself to her younger brother in her heart. At this moment, her heart is in a state of turmoil, and she plans to remind her father when it's time to give birth. Be careful not to do anything behind your younger siblings, and then harm your younger brother. Li Qingyan saw Shen Yunzhu holding the jade pendant and reaching out to hold it himself, with a slight smile on his face. Then he carefully held his little niece in his arms. Shen Yunzhu pressed against Li Qingyan's chest, lifted his hand and pulled at his face, picking at his nose in a particularly comical way. Uncle, this nose is actually real. Li Wanru and her companions were taken aback. Can there still be a fake nose? Uncle's nose is also too beautiful, isn't it? Li Wanru's eyes flickered with a hint of laughter upon hearing these words. Sitting with my little daughter is because I think my little uncle looks good, so I pulled his nose. At this moment, Li Qingyan is also a bit panicked. He has never seen such bold children as his niece before. It's okay to see him not afraid, but he still pressed his little hand against his face. He was completely frozen, carefully protecting Shen Yunzhu. Shen Yunzhu stayed with Li Qingyan and played for a while before reaching out to Li Wanru. Although my uncle is very kind, he is not as comfortable as his beautiful mother holding him. Hey, I'm a bit tired. I don't know how Prince Rong and Yu Yener are doing either. Who was the unlucky one to bump into their private meeting this time? Upon hearing these words, Shen Yunzhu's heart froze for a moment, and a hint of regret appeared in his heart. It's all because he was so focused on bringing Li Qingyan back that he forgot to arrange for someone. But on second thought, if in the original incident, my uncle had died after discovering the private meeting between Prince Rong and Yu Yener. If he really sends someone to inquire and is discovered by Prince Rong's people, then he will definitely live with his own family endlessly. In fact, at this moment, Li Qingyan's heart was also a bit uneasy. After all, although Li Wanru's reasons are reasonable, upon careful listening, they go against common sense. Especially when Shen Yunzhu went to find him, his face turned pale, indicating that something was on his mind. It's just that Li Qingyan's thoughts are quite delicate and have not been expressed. When I stayed at the Shen family until evening, I took a car back to the Li mansion. The next day, the servant next to Li Chengyan hurriedly ran back. Young master, you guessed right. Yangzhou never went to the Biyun Pavilion yesterday. Li Chengyan's face changed greatly upon hearing this, and a hint of malice flashed in his eyes. He has always respected those scholars, otherwise he wouldn't have specially married Wei Wuchang, such a delicate wife. Previously, he knew about Yangzhou because Wei Wuchang had been talking about the romantic affairs of the literati and literati in the capital city by his side, which made him yearn for it. What else? Li Chengyan's tone was particularly condensed. The servant standing opposite him instinctively shuddered. After you left the Biyun Pavilion yesterday, the private room was given to you by a young master surnamed Hong. I specifically went to inquire and found out that young Master Hong had drunk too much last night and drowned in the moat. Upon hearing this, Li Chengyan let out a cold breath, and the images of Shen Yunzhu and Li Wanru came to mind. At this moment, he still doesn't understand that he was rescued by his own sister and nephew. Otherwise, it would have been him who died last night. Chapter 8. Second Brother and Third Brother. You are listening at Novel Full.Audio. Li Chengyan is not the only one who cares about this matter, and Shen Yunzhu and Li Wanru have also sent people to inquire. After learning that the young Master Hong had fallen into the moat and drowned, a look of fear appeared on Shen Yunzhu's face. And when Li Wanru found out, she couldn't help but hug Shen Yunzhu who was sleeping and give him a hard kiss. So Shen Yunzhu, who was sleeping soundly, felt his little face being pecked twice and instinctively raised his hand to scratch it. Li Wanru's heart melted as she looked at her soft appearance. Prince Xian's mansion. Xian Wang was the fourth son of the emperor, named Chu Haoying, and the son of Sun Guifei. After hearing Yan Jian's reply, Chu Haoying's expression was particularly grim. He lowered his eyes, and the aura around him made all the servants below tremble with fear. No one spoke in the entire hall, and the sound of needles falling quietly could be heard. The Shen family's fate is really good, I want to see if they can still dodge next time. Yan Jian, kneeling in front of Chu Haoying, had a hint of fear flashing in his eyes. As he learned more about the wise king, he became more fearful. At that time, he was determined to climb the ranks of the powerful, but now that he has truly become a member of the King of Hell, he knows what kind of pirate ship he has embarked on. After all, even Prince Rong dares to plan, so what's there to be afraid of? If I can't help him get rid of the Shen family, waiting for my own fate may not be better than that of young Master Hong. Prince, since Li Chengyan is so vigilant, why don't we take action on Shen Yunzhu? He is young and easy to fool. The people we sent earlier have already grasped him, so we just need to wait for the appropriate opportunity to send the Yangzhou lean horse to his side. Upon hearing these words, Prince Xian did not answer, but his eyes were fixed on Yan Jian with a condensed expression. Yan Jian's back was sweating when he saw him, and his entire spine was collapsing and he dared not say a word more. I'll give you another chance. If you still can't insert someone into the Shen family, then you can bring your head up to meet me. After hearing these words, Yan Jian secretly complained in his heart, but he also had to swallow them. Who makes the Shen family the future-in-laws of the Crown Prince? After the Crown Prince marries Shen Yunzhu, the power of the Li family will inevitably belong to the Crown Prince's party. So the wise king had to use this method. Previously, the reason why the wise king planted Wei Mama to harm Shen Yunzhu was because he knew that Shen Kuo was extremely fond of Li Wanru. If something happens to Shen Yunzhu and Li Chengyan, Li Wanru will definitely be sad, and Shen Kuo will also be in chaos as a result. At this moment, Shen Yunzhu didn't know what Prince Xian was thinking, but it was indeed true in the plot she knew. Therefore, Shen Kuo hated the wise king and made every effort to help the crown prince ascend to the position of emperor. I just didn't expect that the crown prince was cold and indifferent, and in the end, he even killed Shen Yunlan and caused the entire Shen family to be executed. At this moment, Shen Yunzhu is being held in Shen Yunqing's arms, bouncing around like a treasure. Shen Yunqing shook and Shen Yunzhu let out giggles. Her innocent and lovely appearance made Li Wanru's maternal love shine even stronger. Shen Kuo has been busy with things in the military camp for the past few days and hasn't been home for several days. After hearing his youngest daughter's voice that day, Shen Kuo began secretly investigating the people around him. It's just that those people are lurking deep and cannot be traced for a while. So after much thought, Shen Kuo decided to start with his daughter from a young age. If the little girl confides more when she roasts in her heart, he can catch the traitor. When Shen Kuo returned home, he went to the Imperial Academy to pick up Shen Yunchuan and Shen Yunfei as well. Shen Yunchuan and Shen Yunfei arrived at Li Wanru's yard as soon as they returned. When they returned, Shen Yunlan was also there, but she was a bit surprised when she saw Shen Yunqing. "Big brother, why are you also at home? On vacation?" Shen Yunfei ran to Shen Yunqing with some joy upon hearing this, and raised his hand to grab Shen Yunqing's arm, trying to tease the little sister. He used to be the youngest in the family, but now with the addition of Shen Yunzhu, he is no longer the one at the bottom. In the future, he will have a little sister to take care of. Compared to Shen Yunfei's lively and cheerful demeanor, Shen Yunchuan is more stable. Shen Yunzhu was also attracted by the Shen Yunfei brothers. "This is my young and mature second brother, and my lively and cheerful third brother." After hearing the little girl's voice, Shen Yunlan instinctively glanced at Shen Yunchuan. Since Shen Yunchuan became a companion to the ninth prince, his personality has become more stable. At this moment, with a stern face at a young age, he appears more majestic than Shen Yunqing. Shen Yunfei, who was originally looking at Shen Yunzhu with a strange expression on his face, suddenly froze. Even Shen Yunchuan, who was following behind, instinctively frowned who was speaking just now. Shen Yunfei instinctively looked into the room, but saw Li Wanru sitting on the bed looking at them with a smile on her face and not speaking. And the voice he just heard was clearly full of childlike innocence. Shen Yunchuan was sharp and focused his gaze directly on Shen Yunzhu. Shen Yunzhu looks at his second brother's serious eyebrows and eyes, and can't help complaining in his heart. Second brother is really good. Looking. He is worthy of being recognized as a companion by the ninth prince at a glance. He is just so mature at a young age. Is he really good? Shen Yunlan couldn't help but laugh as she looked at the expression on Shen Yunchuan's face. Little sister roast. Upon hearing this, Shen Yunchuan's expressionless face forced out a smile. At this moment, Shen Yunfei's heart was like a raging storm. Did he hear the voice of his younger sister just now? But why does the little girl only pay attention to her second brother and ignore him? Thinking of this, Shen Yunfei had to raise his hand to hold Shen Yunzhu. Shen Yunqing saw this and raised his hand to block the younger brother. Just kidding, I'm only 7 years old. How could I possibly hold my little sister? Big brother, what are you doing? Let me hug my little sister. No way, third brother. You're still too young, you'll fall me down. Shen Yunzhu looked at Shen Yunfei and waved his small hand vigorously, signaling him not to hug him. Shen Kuo also walked in at this moment, but did not pay attention to the interaction between the siblings. Instead, he walked to Li Wanru's bedside to talk to her. Shen Yunchuan looked serious and stopped Shen Yunfei. Let the older brother hold it, the younger sister is still young and can't withstand your tinkering. Shen Yunfei was most afraid of this second brother. Upon hearing this, he let out a sound and didn't say anything more. He followed Shen Yunlan's footsteps into the room. At this moment, Shen Yunzhu's attention was drawn to the two brothers of Shen Yunchuan. Second brother looked so steady, but in the end he was forced to rebel with the ninth prince. It's really sad. Third brother is also so miserable. He was the most heartless and died on the battlefield to save his father. I remember when he died, it seemed like he hadn't even married a wife. It's all the fault of the crown prince, that hypocrite, who squeezed out the Shen family and kicked them away. If he hadn't been too cruel to his sister, how could the second brother have conspired with the ninth prince to rebel? Chapter 9. The Crown Prince has a white moonlight. You are listening at Novel Full.Audio. When Shen Yunzhu was still muttering in his heart, the Shen family had already been stunned. Especially Shen Yunlan's expression, even though she tried her best to restrain herself, there was still a hint of hatred in her eyes. Sometimes people cannot see the truth when they are deceived. But once you catch a glimpse of the truth, the lies that follow will become clear at a glance. After hearing the little girl's voice that day, Shen Yunlan sent someone to investigate Niu Xiaozhen's recent whereabouts. Although Niu Xiaozhen concealed it well, there were still some clues behind it. However, Shen Yunlan's heart was very chaotic, and she was very satisfied with her fiancé A.E. before. Now that she knew the Crown Prince was only using her, Shen Yunlan still found it difficult to accept for a while. But he made up his mind to protect the whole family and never let himself cause them to die tragically. The other few people were even more shocked, and Shen Yunqing even instinctively glanced at Shen Yunchuan and the two of them. Shen Yunchuan's personality has always been mature, but at a young age, he looks like a little adult. He had mentioned Shen Yunchuan before, but he didn't expect that in the end, his second younger brother chose to rebel in order to help his family seek revenge. What surprised him even more was his younger brother, who had such a heartless personality, but ultimately died in battle to save his father. At the thought of this, Shen Yunqing's whole heart was wrung. Not to mention Shen Kuo, he didn't expect his entire family to die so tragically. Fortunately, he still felt that he was highly valued by the emperor in the city of Kyoto, had married the crown prince, and even felt a little proud after the tide rose. Now that I realize my family is all cannon fodder, the hatred in my heart is pouring out layer by layer. He has been fighting on the battlefield for the sake of the Haoyue kingdom all year round, gathering with his family more often. In the end, he finally managed to sit in the position of a general, but still had to endure the tragedy of his family's downfall. If it weren't for his youngest daughter, wouldn't he still be kept in the dark? The whole family is very quiet. Shen Yunzhu turned his head curiously to look at the people in the room. What's wrong with my family? They don't even speak, am I too cute? Shen Yunzhu's soft and cute voice echoed in everyone's minds. Quickly, everyone restrained their expressions and began to interact again. Just a stone is pressing down on everyone's heart. Shen Kuo was the first to recover and reached out to pick up his little daughter. Dad looks quite happy. Has it been found out about Aunt Gui and Uncle Air? Shen Kuo held his little daughter's hand and froze for a moment. Which pot is really not opened and which pot is being picked up? I have brought up his sadness. Fortunately, only he could hear his little daughter's voice, otherwise he couldn't even lift his head now. I don't think so. If it were found out, my father wouldn't be so happy. My grandmother will be back in a while, and I'm sure she will have to ask for money from her mother again. In the original plot, the mother relinquished the butler's power due to the tragic death of her younger uncle. The entire general's demeanor was like a sieve, and anyone could fit in a few people. Well, Niu Dali next to Big Brother is just an insider. I guess he will persuade Big Brother to go to the restaurant and take a Yangzhou skinny horse to raise outside. Suddenly, the person with an unpleasant expression turned into Shen Yunqing. Niu Dali is a capable servant around him, basically leaving everything to him to do. A while ago, he did speak up for his friend quite a bit, but now that he heard the girl's voice, he felt a little uneasy. You need to know your own situation, Niu Dali is very clear about it. He wants to calculate for himself, with a mind but no mind, he is indeed unable to defend himself. Shen Yunchuan instinctively glanced at his elder brother upon hearing this, and a hint of darkness flashed in his eyes. It seems that he needs to find a way to distract Niu Dali from his elder brother's side. Shen Kuo was pondering in his heart whether or not to take advantage of the situation and pull out the person behind Niu Dali. Big Brother has been staying in the army, unable to guard against those sinister tricks. It is also because he has kept an outer chamber outside that he angered his future father.In.Law and was impeached in front of the Holy One. Shen Yunzhu's words made Shen Yunqing feel on pins and needles. Li Wanru's drooping eyes also flashed a hint of hatred. Why are these people so disgusting? Surprisingly, even her eldest son's marriage was being calculated. Dad, let me hug your little sister. I brought her a gift. Shen Yunfei was heartless and heartless. He was already young, and although he was shocked by what the younger sister said, it didn't stop him from wanting to get closer to her. Shen Yunfei took out a 9-link from his backpack. That texture is warm and smooth, and it looks like it's often tampered with. It's also adorned with beautiful jade rings. As soon as it shook, there was a clattering sound, but the texture was made of blue jade, which was somewhat fragile. Shen Yunfei placed the 9 links in front of Shen Yunzhu and swayed them, attracting her attention. After seeing the beautiful 9 rings, Shen Yunzhu immediately grabbed them from his body. It's great to be young and old, there are endless gifts to receive, but I prefer gold. Shen Yunzhu's moaning voice revealed a hint of regret. When everyone heard this, a hint of laughter appeared in their eyes. Shen Yunchuan, who had been dull all along, had a bright color in his eyes. I also brought a gift for my little sister when I came back this time. He took out a specially made gold bracelet from his pocket. 2 carved gold bracelets were handed to Shen Yunzhu by him. A small pair, especially exquisite. It was crafted by a palace craftsman specifically hired by Shen Yunchuan with the help of the 9th prince. Shen Yunzhu's eyes lit up as he looked at the pair of yellow-orange gold bracelets. She held on to Julian ring but was reluctant to let go, her conflicted expression made everyone laugh. Woo, I really like it all, but I can't hold it. Shen Yunlan went forward and took the 9 rings, then put the gold bracelet on the little girl first, and then placed the 9 rings in Shen Yunzhu's arms. Wow, the eldest sister still understands me. No wonder the eldest sister later became the queen, but unfortunately, the crown prince has always had a white moonlight in his heart. So whether it was Sister A or Niu Xiaozhen, they were just chess pieces for the crown prince to ascend, and in the end, the Niu family also died tragically. Shen Yunlan didn't expect Niu Xiaozhen to also die tragically. They argued and argued with each other later, all in order to make way for the white moonlight in the crown prince's heart. No, she needs to find a way to tell her father that he must not let the Shen family suppress the crown prince. Now they have an engagement and cannot withdraw, but it is absolutely not enough to bring the crown prince to power. Due to the company of a family, Shen Yunzhu is particularly happy. Either being embraced by this one, or being swayed by that one. In short, she didn't live a carefree life, but as a baby, she quickly felt tired and fell asleep nestled in Li Wanru's arms. The family immediately softened their conversation when they saw Shen Yunzhu asleep. Shen Kuok glanced at his sons and took them to the study. Chapter 10. Turning over old accounts. You are listening at novel full.audio. Shen Yunlan did not leave with her, but instead stayed in the room to accompany Li Wanru. Shen Yunzhu was carried down by a wet nurse and went to sleep. In the quiet room, Shen Yunlan's expression was somewhat conflicted. Li Wanru actually harbors many things in her heart and also wants to test her daughter's thoughts. Why have you been running to your mother these past few days? Shen Yunlan heard her mother's gentle voice and felt waves of grievances in her heart. Mom, I don't want to marry the crown prince anymore. Shen Yunlan said with a sad expression on her face. Li Wanru was shocked by the words and instinctively sat up straight. What's wrong? Aren't you your favorite prince? Shen Yunlan couldn't help but snort when she heard these words. That was before, but I don't like the crown prince anymore. I think he's too annoying. After hearing these words, Li Wanru felt a hint of joy in her heart. She was already thinking about how to quietly apply eye drops to her eldest daughter, keeping her away from the crown prince, in order to avoid dying in the cold palace. But now Shen Yunlan actually told her that she didn't like the crown prince, which made her curious. Why? You used to be the crown prince's brother when you didn't keep your mouth open, but now why don't you like him? Li Wanru looked at Shen Yunlan with a hint of teasing. Since hearing the voice of her younger sister, Shen Yunlan has hated the crown prince to death. How could I possibly like him again? Shen Yunlan is not a romantic brain. The reason why she can live a good life now is entirely because she is the eldest daughter of Shen Kuo. If she loses the Shen family, she is nothing. Shen Yunlan once stayed at the border and knew what kind of life those ordinary people lived. Because during the last flower viewing banquet, the crown prince only knew how to protect Niu Xiaozhen, and he also knew that I and Niu Xiaozhen were not going to deal with each other. The crown prince said he wanted me to be more magnanimous. Why not protect me? He's my fiancé, why not protect me? At this moment, Shen Yunlan's face was full of grievances. Actually, it has been over a month since the flower viewing banquet. Bringing up this old matter again is just to find a suitable excuse for hating the crown prince. But at that time, she was indeed convinced by the crown prince's words, thinking that she should not be jealous as the crown princess in the future. It's okay for the crown prince to say a few words to Niu Xiaozhen. As the future crown princess, she should be magnanimous. But a few days ago, when she heard the voice of her younger sister, Shen Yunlan only wanted to say, "Go to him." After hearing these words, Li Wanru couldn't help but exclaim. Is it really fake? Why didn't you even tell your mother before? Li Wanru looked at Shen Yunlan with a heart-wrenching expression on her face. The crown prince said that I am a general and a tiger girl, so I shouldn't be so stingy. Is being with Niu Xiaozhen more precious than me? Just because she grew up in Kyoto, I should let her go. Li Wanru knows that her eldest daughter likes the crown prince. Since she was granted marriage, Li Wanru has hired a dedicated nanny to teach Shen Yunlan, hoping that she can become a gentle and virtuous crown princess. But now when she suddenly heard the crown prince protecting Niu Xiaozhen at the flower viewing banquet and neglecting her own daughter, her anger surged. Why? Shen Yunlan is the daughter she raised in the palm of her hand. Even if she had lived with Shen Yunlan on the border a few years ago, she did not mistreat her at all. Why do you have to suffer even after becoming a crown princess? At this moment, Li Wanru sincerely thanks the heavens for giving her the treasure of Shen Yunzhu. If it weren't for hearing the voice of her youngest daughter, she wouldn't have known that the crown prince's wild heart had traces so early on. Unfortunately, their whole family was blind. Previously, they thought the crown prince was a good person. If she knew that the crown prince was such a person, she would stop their engagement with anything, she said. You're right, the crown prince is going too far. You're his fiancé now, and he didn't say he was protecting you at the flower viewing banquet, but he even scolded you for Niu Xiaozhen. Where is this putting the face of our Shen family? Shen Yunlan didn't expect her words to successfully arouse her mother's disgust towards the crown prince, which left her feeling a bit stunned for a moment. So I hate the crown prince, I don't want to marry him, I want to divorce him. Upon hearing this, Li Wanru raised her hand and patted the back of Shen Yunlan's hand. It's not like you have to withdraw from the marriage because of this. If you really don't like the crown prince, I'll tell your father later and ask him to think of a way. Li Wanru tentatively said. She didn't know if her eldest daughter was feeling wronged for a while or if she truly thought so. But no matter what, getting divorced is not so easy. Shen Yunlan also stopped when she saw the improvement. She knew that her engagement with the crown prince was not easy to withdraw. I also don't want the Shen family to stand directly opposite the crown prince for their own sake. After all, in the eyes of outsiders, they and the crown prince are already united on the front line. And what she is even more curious about is, who is the white moonlight in the crown prince's heart. As soon as the two of them finished talking to each other, Shen Yunzhu was picked up by the wet nurse. She sleeps a lot every day, but her sleep is very short, only slightly longer at night. As soon as Shen Yunzhu woke up, she was placed in Li Wanru's arms by a wet nurse. Li Wanru instinctively lifted her clothes and was about to breastfeed Shen Yunzhu. After these few days, Shen Yunzhu has fully adapted. But at this moment, Shen Yunlan was watching from the side, and Shen Yunzhu couldn't help but blush. She was a soft ball, red like a small shrimp. Sister, can you stop watching me breastfeed no matter how delicious it is? I can't give it to you. Shen Yunlan is really an unremarkable girl, and upon hearing this, her face instantly turned red. She immediately stood up and bid farewell to Li Wanru. Seeing Shen Yunlan go out, Shen Yunzhu breathed a sigh of relief. Hey, when can I grow up? I also want to eat. Li Wanru smiled at the words and couldn't help but raise her hand to touch Shen Yunzhu's small face. Girl, grow up quickly. Once you grow up, you can eat. Woo, I also want to. Just as the two were interacting, the sound of red sleeves came from the door. Madam, Grandpa said that when the young lady wakes up, he will take her to the study and let you rest for a while. A hint of shyness flashed on Li Wanru's face upon hearing this. Her relationship with Shen Kuo was already very good, especially after learning about Aunt Gui's situation. Shen Kuo became even more considerate of her. I want to go, I haven't been to my father's study yet. Li Wanru, who was still hesitant at first, directly let Red Sleeve hold her over. When Shen Yunzhu was taken to the study, Shen Kuo was checking the homework of his two youngest sons. Seeing Shen Yunzhu come in, Shen Kuo's originally serious face instantly turned into a flower with a smile. The girl is here, Dad is holding her. After these days of training, Shen Kuo's movements of holding the child have become more and more proficient. Most of Shen Kuo's other children have the image of a strict father. But for Shen Yunzhu, he can only be filled with fatherly love and cannot be spoiled.